Hey guys, I almost didn't notice you there. Uh, happy Halloween. In the spirit of Halloween, I thought I'd do a little something that I've been thinking about doing for a long time. And maybe there has been people who did this already, but I just can't shake the feeling that sometimes even the most innocent looking games can scare the daylights out of you. Imagine this. You're a little kid. You're young. You're innocent. And your parents had just bought you this brand new Nintendo game for you to have fun with. It looks so happy and colorful the more you play it, but then somewhere along the adventure, something creepy is about to unfold. Something's bound to creep you out that is going to make you feel uncomfortable. Everyone has a story about a particular enemy that scared them away from the screen, and probably even traumatized them. Or maybe gave them this sense of anxiety that will just never go away. I'll be discussing some of those things tonight, so here you go. Here is my top 10 scariest enemies in video games that aren't horror. Oh, and one more thing. I solemnly swear that there will be no jump scares in this video, okay? I promise. Number 10.
Hardly anyone talks about Bomberman anymore. It's probably the most fun I've had with an action puzzle game. I used to love playing Bomberman a lot in my youth, and I still have fond memories of me and my older sisters playing Super Bomberman 2 on the Super Nintendo. While the first Super Bomberman game was good in its own right, Super Bomberman 2 is just better in every way. Rather than just being a big flat squared arena with enemies and obstacles over and over again, this game has actual level design with unique gimmicks, a much better soundtrack, and a better multiplayer mode that gave me such a good time. This game was about White Bomber being captured by the 5 dastardly bombers and having to clear different stages and then fighting them one by first defeating them and then facing off against their boss machines. One boss machine in particular really creeped me out. At the end of Stage 3, the amusement park stage, you face off against Pretty Bomber, and then she gets into her boss machine, Mask Change. This boss is quite cute, and pretty charming to look at first, as it moves in a diagonal pattern and makes that cute little winky face. That is until you damage it or destroy one of its attacks, and then that face. Just seeing that really caught me off guard. And then that thing with that ugly, angry face starts chasing you, leaving little to no room or time to place any more bombs to deal more damage to it. What's even scarier is that these bosses become faster and more aggressive the more you damage them. And Mask Change is no exception. This thing will chase you down and nullify your bombs upon contact if you make it angry, and having to run away from something with a face like that? This is like an evolved form of the angry sun from Super Mario Bros. 3. And just look at its face of agony when it's defeated.
Number 9.
Kirby's Dream Land 3 is a cutesy-looking game with a cutesy-looking art style. The pastel-like designs and crayon drawings is what makes it stand out from the rest. Kirby games have always been very adorable in terms of both presentation and character designs. But once you start getting towards the end of the game, things start to become more unsettling. The one thing I remember being the most unnerved by was the true final boss of Kirby's Dream Land 3. Once you've collected every heart star by completing certain tasks and helping friends in need, you get to fight Dark Matter, which starts off as a straightforward final boss fight. You use the love stick to fire projectiles at Dark Matter to damage it. But just as you think the fight is over, you meet Zero. This big eyeball that fights you with, well, blood? I don't know what else to make of this red substance that's coming at you. And if that wasn't enough, defeating Zero causes it to bleed out in a horrific way, and all that's left is a red eyeball that bleeds even more. And yet, this game is rated K to A, which means kids to adults. You know, this might sound a little controversial, but I find it funny how a lot of soccer moms complained about games like Mortal Kombat just for being the way it is. There's fighting, there's blood gushing everywhere, and there's many ways you can finish off your opponent in gruesome ways. But yet, I've heard no parents or kids freak out about a f***ing bleeding eyeball in a video game for young kids. Yeah, that's just weird to me.
8.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles is basically 2 games in one, but they're technically both the same game. Nevertheless, this is one of my favorite Sonic games from the Genesis era, as you have 3 playable characters, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and a lot more levels to play through as well as a save system that Sonic 1 and 2 didn't have. Excellent gameplay, awesome soundtrack, and I can come back to this game any day if I don't feel like playing Sonic Mania, that is. So I know what you're all thinking. Oh, are you going to talk about the drowning music? That's always the scariest thing in Sonic games. And yes, I can agree on that, but that's more of an anxiety thing rather than scary. Oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, get me out, get me out, get me out! But since this is Halloween, you know, ghosts, zombies, monsters, well, things are about to get very ghostly once you reach Sandopolis Zone Act 2. You're inside a hidden pyramid and learning that you have to turn on the lights constantly, as well as activate sand gates and fill the floor with sand in order to advance. That doesn't become too much of an issue, but then you reach this capsule that releases a swarm of ghosts known as Hyudoro. These ghosts will appear on top of Sonic and Tails, and as the room gets darker and you don't pull the switch that turns the lights back on, the ghosts get bigger. And then, when the pyramid is fully dark, the ghosts start attacking you relentlessly. So here you are, just being attacked by these ghosts, losing rings constantly while trying to find the light switch. And if you're playing as Knuckles, well, as soon as you start Act 2, prepare for these ghosts to make an immediate beeline towards the poor echidna. Better turn on the lights quickly, or else you're dead. You know how Dr. Robotnik/Eggman basically imprisons small animals into his robots to power them? And even traps them inside these capsules that Sonic must free them from? Well, these enemies were once animals that were imprisoned in a capsule by Dr. Eggman, but they were left there too long to the point where they probably starved to death. Ugh. And now they appear as these vengeful ghosts that will attack anyone who dares enter the pyramid. Wow, Dr. Eggman truly is evil.
Number 7.
Ah yes, Super Mario 64, the video game that changed everything. It changed how we play video games, it changed how we look at video games, and it was truly a revolutionary hit back in the 90s. I didn't grow up playing it per se, because my first 3D Mario was actually Sunshine, and I'm sure you all know how much I love that game, as it's my all-time favorite! But I digress. I did get to play some Super Mario 64 in my time, and yeah, it did have its weird and creepy moments, like this. I don't think I want to come near you. Whoa, 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 that's a little too close for comfort, buddy. I ain't your dinner. As big as you are, I'm not afraid of you, Big Boo. But then comes this. You walk into this room as you're hunting for those red coins. Then you come up to this piano, which happens to be right where the red coin is. Looks like an ordinary piano at first, but then you approach it, and nope, 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 nope! So I never encountered this thing in the original Mario 64, but rather the DS remake. And I'm not kidding, I nearly had a heart attack the moment this thing started moving and chopping up a storm. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who got scared by this piano though. Just want to point out, this thing will only attack you if you either run near it or jump on top of it. And in the DS version, it's a lot easier to just slowly walk behind the piano to get the red coin. So you don't have to worry about this thing attacking you and taking out 3 units of your energy.
Number 6.
Let's go back in time to the GameCube era, where Metroid Prime was a big hit and even won Game of the Year. I have lots of memories of playing this game as a kid, and it's one of my favorite games to just come back and play from start to finish, and even go for 100% completion. This game has such a wonderful atmosphere, and it really captures that feeling of being on a distant planet with many wonders. And it's 3D Metroid. But then you progress through the game more and more, and things start to become more foreboding. First you got those space pirates that will attack you from the shadows, then these sentry drones that will lock you in the room until you defeat them, and then after defeating Thardis, you head back to Chozo Ruins to make more progress now that you have the Spider Ball. And along the way you come to the Hall of the Elders, which begins your first encounter against these guys. the Chozo ghosts. These entities will make scary sounds and make the room go dark as soon as you enter a room where they lurk. Then they start shooting electric energy that will hurt you and even mess with your visor. The worst part is, they fade in and out of sight, making them really difficult to fight. Yes, you are able to take them out with super missiles and charge shots, but it's very difficult to get a lock on them when they keep fading in and out. The only way to truly fight them is to use the X-ray visor, which doesn't come until way later in the game, almost to the end of the game. And not to mention when you're backtracking for upgrades in Chozo ruins, you'll sometimes encounter the Chozo ghosts in rooms you've visited before. As a kid, I remember hoping that I would get the X-ray visor soon. I'm just like, okay, can I just get the X-ray visor already? The scan shows that I have to use it. I'm surprised that I even played through this game at 8 years old. And I wouldn't actually beat it until I was about 11 years old. Or 12 or 13? I can't remember.
Hey everyone, it's present-day Super Bro Alex, and I want to pause here for a bit. Since uploading the original video in 2022, Nintendo surprised us all with the announcement and the release of Metroid Prime Remastered. And I originally wanted to include footage for this version specifically for my new revised video, until I realized that it operates on a save system that completely resets all of your data and all of your progress should you choose to replay it on the hard difficulty after finishing the game the first time. And I unfortunately couldn't use my 100% complete file to revisit locations like you could do in the original GameCube and Wii versions. But I should mention that Metroid Prime Remastered is a game I would highly recommend, especially since it's not too long ago that we finally got the reveal of Metroid Prime 4. It's more than just an upscaled remastering of the first Metroid Prime game. They improved a lot of things like the overall presentation, the new content that you unlock for making logbook progress. You can enable narration for the in-game cutscenes. I guess that was a feature that was exclusive to the European and Japanese version. And you start with the traditional FPS controls, with the left stick controlling your movement and the right stick controls your point of view. This actually isn't too hard to adjust to, and locking onto enemies and strafing still operates the same. The only difference being that you have to hold the X button if you want to switch weapons. You actually have the option to change the control style, so you can play it with the aiming controls like in the Wii version or the original GameCube controls, should that be your preference. Some enemies look different and more clearer, the lighting makes the environments much more beautiful, and the music remains untouched. So yeah, great remaster, great game period, one of my all-time favorites. And if you haven't played this, I highly recommend it. And now, back to my top 10 scariest enemies in non-horror games.
Number 5.
Yoshi's Crafted World is another one of those super adorable games that is very calming and relaxing to play. Not kidding, this game actually calms my anxiety at times with how vibrant the levels are, and I actually really like the whole arts and crafts aesthetic. It's very creative, and it's implemented very well with the level design. This isn't my favorite game, but I do like it. Also, who doesn't love Yoshi? Seriously. But boy, I was not ready for the level known as Be Afraid of the Dark. This level has you going through a horror movie setting with zombie shy guys and bats, and then you come across this message block that reads this message. If he sees you, run away. The way that message was written had me in complete shock. If who sees me? Uh-oh, he doesn't look friendly. Oh dear lord! The Bunma Washi dolls. Clown-like dolls that try to straight up murder Yoshi with the f***ing axe. You can't hurt these guys either, and not even throwing eggs at them does anything. Your only option is to just run away from these freak shows, and using spots that are lit by lamps to stay safe. This level is basically chock full of these scary clowns, and they will appear everywhere. You are not safe. And to add insult on top of injury, you'll come up to another message block that says, he will come from behind. And then another one comes out of nowhere to turn poor Yoshi into mincemeat. It's like, dang, I was having such a relaxing time with the entirety of this game, only to be greeted by this f***ing level. It's like one big false sense of security for such an adorable, light-hearted game. There's also blood in this level. I know, it's just red crayon drawn on the walls to add to the horror theme, and I even mentioned the zombie Shy Guys, but still! I wonder how many young kids played this level when this game first came out. I can already hear the screams of anguish.
Number 4.
Pikmin is another one of those games that hardly anyone talks about. I remember playing the heck out of Pikmin when it first came out on the GameCube. This was another one of those games that really wanted to show you what the GameCube was capable of, which is being able to control multiple things at once. This game even had its own sequel, Pikmin 2, where yes, Olimar managed to escape from the distant planet, but unfortunately upon returning home, he gets news from the president that the shipping company he works for has fallen on financial struggles as they are in a big debt that must be repaid. So Olimar and the newly recruited Louie head back to the Pikmin planet to go hunting for treasure to pay off the debt. A big part of this game is entering underground dungeons that have lots of treasure to find upon arriving. But then you come to that one particular dungeon in Pikmin 2, the Submerged Castle, which you can only access by bringing blue Pikmin with you. Things start to get creepy. First off, you have this eerie music playing in the background, which is probably telling you there's something sinister that's awaiting you in this dreaded dungeon. If you spend too much time in the sub-level you're in, it appears. Meet the Water Wraith, a transparent, liquid, ghost-like enemy on 2 stone wheels that prowls around looking to steamroll you and your Pikmin and cause an extinction. You also can't hurt this thing either, so that's fun. Not to mention it really becomes a problem when you're trying to carry treasure. Your only option is to use small crevices and tunnels to hide from the Water Wraith. But the thing is, you feel inclined to haul as much treasure as you can before the darn thing appears. Even scarier, these sublevels are fraught with danger. There's traps everywhere, there's dangerous animals everywhere, making you have to carefully plan your approach, otherwise you and your Pikmin squad are screwed. And dang, those creepy sounds that it makes is just so nightmarish. I definitely wouldn't feel comfortable having this thing prowl around, just hearing those noises and those creepy voices as it rolls around. Ugh. On the bright side, you can actually kill the Water Wraith when it becomes an actual boss fight at the end of the dungeon, when you're able to use purple Pikmin to damage it. But even still, I've had nightmares about this thing, and I'd probably never want to come back to this dungeon after speaking about it. Ugh.
Number 3.
Donkey Kong Country, a game series that still has a special place in my heart. The first DKC game was lots of fun and I can come back and play it any day. And then we go over to Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, which is just as fun, if not a little better than the first game in terms of content. You know, it took me years to realize that Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong are going through many places that really want them dead. King K. Rool ain't messing around, and he is definitely going to do everything in his power to make sure the Kongs fail to save their beloved friend, Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong Country 2 has you going through pirate ships, masts, sunken parts of the ships, lava caves, murky swamps, brambles, a hornet's nest, and an amusement park that is definitely not friendly. And then we go over to the Gloomy Gulch, a spooky-themed world with creepy forests and a haunted library with a roller coaster inside. The second level, Haunted Hall, definitely terrified me as a kid, as I was riding a roller coaster and I had to deal with these creepy skeletal ghosts known as Cackle. Cackles are ghostly kremlings that give you chase every time you go through the gates and enter their zones. You see this timer ticking down indicating that this place really wants you dead. You must use the plus barrels along the way to increase the timer and prevent Cackle from attacking you, and avoid touching the minus barrels, which will decrease the timer and make sure that you meet your doom. Because once that timer reaches 0, that happens. Thank goodness this is the only time you have to deal with these guys. But still, this is pretty creepy.
Number 2.
So, I'm not a huge fan of Legend of Zelda, but Wind Waker is one of my favorite games to just pick up and play to my heart's content. Yeah, I play the HD remake a lot more than the GameCube original nowadays, but I will give the GameCube original credit where credit is due. Not many people liked this game at first due to its art style and cartoony aesthetic, but now people have been appreciating it more in recent years. I spent hours upon hours on this game during my school days, and despite the fact that I was stuck at the Forsaken Fortress for so long, trying to get my sword back, yeah, stealth missions still kind of scare me to this day, but I'll get to that later. When I actually did get my sword back and played through the game more and more, I was having a good time overall, even if most of these enemies were terrifying. Seriously, I'm surprised that a lot of people forget to point out how creepy a lot of the Zelda enemies are. The enemies in Legend of Zelda are intimidating if not menacing. Even that eerie music you hear upon approaching any enemies makes my heart race sometimes. Because it's like, uh-oh, who's out to get me? Where are you? I got a sword here and I'm not afraid to use it! But then we get to the Earth Temple. And oh boy, nearly every enemy here legit terrified me. First you have the Floor Masters that would grab you from out of nowhere, and I remember just not wanting to get near those things. And then you have those Ghosts that will curse you if you don't defeat them with light. And at last but not least, you come up to this one room where you need a key to unlock the mini-boss door, and you see all these coffins lined up on the walls. You walk up to them and they reveal the Re-Deads. These are returning enemies from Ocarina of Time that basically do the same thing as before. If you get in their line of sight, they'll let out a blood-curdling scream, paralyzing Link for a few seconds, which means your controls are locked, and then they start heading towards you. And if they come in contact with you... Ah! Get off me! Get off me! Get off me! Get off me! You have to mash every button you can and even use the control stick to shake them off. Granted, you are able to kill the Re-Deads with just a few sword strikes or bomb blasts. You later learn that you can use the mirror shield that you just got in the dungeon to stun the Re-Deads with reflected light, allowing you to safely approach them and kill them. These enemies, I hated them so much. I'm not gonna lie, I was about 8 years old at the time, and after encountering the Re-Deads for the first time, I put this game down for months. Yeah, I was that traumatized. All it took was one encounter with these guys to make me stop playing this game for so long. So before I get to number 1, here are a few honorable mentions. The Moon from Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I'm pretty sure that there were too many things that are bound to creep you out in that game, but just the fact that this big moon with an angry face is coming to destroy the entire world, that's what makes it unsettling. Fury Bowser is pretty terrifying, especially when you're watching him emerge from afar. The Dark Troopers from Metroid Prime 2 Echoes are also terrifying because the moment you start the game, this dark matter comes around to bring them back to life to attack Samus. The old Chateau from Pokemon Gen 4 is also foreboding, right up until you catch Rotom, which is actually quite useful. I find it much creepier than the Distortion world, exclusive to Platinum. Every single boss in Wario World is terrifying. I was always scared of the Phantom Masks from Super Mario Bros. 2. Now about Luigi's Mansion, I get that it's supposed to be scary-ish, but it's actually quite charming if you just get used to the spooks. This goes for the entire Luigi's Mansion trilogy. Another honorable mention is No Eyes from Hollow Knight. Oh yeah, and let's not forget the Dark Trains in Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. Ugh, I hate that music that plays whenever they're around, because once they come in contact with you, it's an instant game over.
Number 1.
Spider-Man, the movie, the video game, is one of my favorite games from childhood. This was my jam back in 2002. I loved Spider-Man as a kid, and he's still my favorite Marvel Comics hero. Better yet, the video game adaptation came out on the exact same year as the live-action film starring Tobey Maguire and Willem Dafoe, and those two stuck around for the video game too. So this game has you controlling Spidey throughout the entire game, beating up baddies, climbing all over the place, and web-swinging wherever you want as long as you want. Better yet, the movie's plot actually takes a backseat for the sake of bringing in other villains from Spider-Man's comics. So what would be so scary about such an awesome game based on the 2002 film? Well, I'm about to get to that. There's a point in the game where Spider-Man wants to find out the truth about his arch-nemesis, the Green Goblin, and he learns that he has some affiliation with Oscorp, a company run by his best friend's dad, so he goes on a stealth mission to Oscorp headquarters to get to the bottom of things. Oh boy, the Oscorp levels were the most unsettling experience when I was young. I'm still terrified to venture here today. It still gets to me, after all these years. So what exactly do you have to do here? Well, first off, the main goal of this level is to avoid being detected. You have to use shadowed areas on the walls and ceilings and even rely on spider sense to be alert of nearby security guards. The sub-goal is to look for computers that give you parts of a secret code that allow you to access the laboratories. Sounds simple enough, but the very moment you get caught by the wandering guards, or if you get detected by security cameras or laser tripwires, the alarm will sound. And then, they come. Meet the Oscorp Super Soldier robots. These heavily armed androids will begin prowling the premises the minute the alarm sounds, and you have a few seconds to react and stay hidden until they leave. And if they see you, prepare to be obliterated by laser cannons and miniature bombs. Ugh. These robots do so much damage, and you're basically doomed if you're not ready to get away from them. It's even worse when you're being attacked by more than one super soldier robot. Talk about stirring up a hornet's nest. These levels bring the very feeling of fear in the best possible way. I'm not kidding, these levels execute that very well, if not a little too well. First off, the fact that there's flashing red lights and a faint alarm blaring in the background with suspenseful music playing. Secondly, the heavy footsteps coming from the robots as they're coming to get you. And lastly, those bone-chilling robotic voices coming from them, especially when they're on the attack.
Target identified as Spider-Man. Enemy sighted. Target acquired. Tracking him. Target acquired. Contact.
Screw those robots from Terminator. The super soldiers are nightmare fuel. I'm not kidding, guys. These enemies cursed me for life. I've actually had nightmares about these things. And I'll never look at high security areas the same ever again. And my heart races every time they show up. On a somewhat happier note, you are able to kill these guys, as a few punches and kicks should take them out. But honestly, for the most part, it's a death sentence to even do that, unless you're able to tie them up with webs before getting swarmed by other robots. So yeah, it's better that you just don't waste time punching them or webbing them. Just stealth. They also show up in the next level, where sometimes they actually patrol the labs with the guards, leaving you with one option to stay hidden from them, crawling on the ceiling. And if that wasn't enough, after the boss fight against Oscorp's ultimate weapon, the entire building has been alerted to Spider-Man's presence, so now they're really after you.
Standard search and destroy pattern. Find the intruder and neutralize with extreme prejudice.
Thanks a lot, Spider-Man the movie, the game. You have officially traumatized me for life.
Whew. Man. That was some experience revisiting all of my childhood fears. And I'm sure there are plenty of enemies that I didn't cover. But if you want to share about what enemy scared you most as a kid in a video game that wasn't a horror game, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. And with that, once again, happy Halloween and a good night to all. I'm just kidding. I promise you guys no jump scares. They're too gimmicky. You guys want some real horror? Psychological horror is a lot better than jump scares. Speaking from experience. And I guess I'll be off for the night. Make sure you have a... Wait. What is that?
Search and destroy pattern. Find the intruder and neutralize with extreme prejudice.